Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Here we are. We're here with Josh, Ian, and the new face in the room. And I don't know where the others are. Clocks have changed. Such is life. They can't work out GMT. But Johnny from Willet Mod had a video that super impressed me this week. And in fact, I think let's dive in with that first. Not Josh. Johnny had a video that super impressed me. Josh has got a lot of boring paperwork. That's what Josh is bringing to the party. Is just lots and lots of paperwork this evening. There's Ian's posting in the thing. So Johnny Willet Mod had a video tuning a quad using artificial intelligence, which to me is like the work of witchcraft or nonsense. Maybe it was bull dust, but it's well worth having a look at his video. Let's see if we can get that up there while we're here. We've got a new present things. Here it is here. This is what his video looks like at the Willet Mod channel. Well worth going and having a look, if only to see him fly out of one of these dormer windows that's on his roof there. That impressed me no end as well. So that's the channel to have a look at. Let me put that in the comments as we go. Stop sharing that and ask you, Johnny, is it all true? Was it really AI that did it? And how on earth did you know what to say to it? How on earth did you? How do you know these things?
That is the question, isn't it? So the answer is yes. That was all AI, and that was not edited. I didn't get rid of any responses. There is an amount of playing field available in a 2-inch quad that you have, which is a lot broader than say a 5-inch quad. So in a 2-inch, you could pretty much play around with the sliders. It's going to do bad stuff, but not necessarily really bad stuff. So worst case, you might get jitters and oscillations and fly away. But yeah, the prompts that were in there were all really straightforward, unedited. The tune that came out of it worked. And really, it's all how you prompt. It's about giving the AI the right information, because what you're really doing is you're not talking to something that's actually intelligent. You're talking to a large language model that they're dumb. Let's face it, but rubbish in, rubbish out is the best way to describe it. So if you're really precise with what you want to gain out and put a good set of parameters in, you will get good results back out. But again, that does depend on the LLM, depends on what type of AI, which version. There's so many variables.
But how did you know that you could even do that? How did the LLM be taught? I think it was Betaflight, wasn't it, you're using, if I remember correctly? How on earth did it know the vagaries of Betaflight? It went off. You told it to go off and have a look at this and then come back with some answers, please.
Yeah. So ChatGPT 4.0, the way it works, the large language model is effectively a distilled version of the internet and lots of languages and information and stuff. And it's all refined and distilled into a very compact format. That format is unreadable by you and I, but to a large language model, it can use that to run through various thought paths. A lot of people have explained it as it's just very good at guessing what the next word is in a sentence. And that's not really an accurate representation of what an LM does. So it is aware of various softwares. It is aware of tunes that are available or have been on the internet. It's aware of other queries, and depending on what is in that side, the LLM, and then what it learns outside of the LLM, and that's the important part, is what it can gain from publicly accessible knowledge, then forms part of the broader spectrum. But this isn't something that just happened overnight. So if we look at the earlier versions like 03, it might not have had X, Y, and Z elements in there, but because people have asked it those questions, they used 03 as a training model to then expand and then re-ingest data and distill it into what is now 4.0 or 4.5, which is, I think 4.5 is pretty much the dumbest AI so far, but it's hilariously dumb. And, but it's progress, is it not?
If you say so. I was just astounded at how well that worked. So had you told it, look, I'd really like to be working with the Betaflight, can you just go off and learn it, please? Had you taught it? Or you didn't just come to it raw and say, go?
Yeah. It was a brand new session. I said, well, as you'll see in the video, I said, this is the quad I've got. Running Betaflight, was specific on the version, was specific on the weight of the quad, the size of the quad, just in case it didn't have that particular quad in its database or in its LLM. And anything it didn't know, it may have gained from external sources. It did do a bit of external searching. It's different to Manus. I mean, that's a whole Manus AI and Manus IM is a whole different thing. Well, I think we'll park that for a minute. So this being just an LLM-based AI, I just straight up asked it. I said, this is what I want to achieve, but I was specific with my questions. And then when it didn't quite give me the answer that I wanted, or if something looked out of place or incorrect, it's a case of them prompting it, giving it a poke and saying, are you sure? Because typically it's really confident. Even when it gets stuff wrong, you'll be like, oh yeah, there's 6 R's in strawberry. Are you sure about that? Count them. Oh yeah, my bad. And sometimes it does go back, and that was a typical mistake that O3 was making as an example. So there are various bits of bad data in these LLMs, but ultimately when you're coming down to PID calculations, basic physics and mathematics, there are rules in those that aren't necessarily broken and can't be broken, but they can be interpreted. And I think that's the difference between the art of tuning a drone and the science of tuning a drone. They're two very, very different things.
Wow. Gosh, we're in the presence of a grown-up, aren't we? It's quite extraordinary. Because for me, I must admit, I've long thought I'm not a multi-rotor fan at all. There's a couple here, but I'm more of a fixed wing sort of person. And I've always wondered why on earth I can't just.
Have you been near Lakenheath by any chance?
Near Lakenheath, well, yeah, we'll come on to that. Yes, we'll come on to that. And please stay with us, John. I love your thoughts on what we're going to go on to talk about. But I've often thought, I wondered why we haven't been able to just fly a profile. Put some stalls in and get the aircraft doing some aircrafty things, run some approaches, and then say, right, sort this out into a better tune based on stall, buffer, all the flight conditions that you'd put it in, steep turns, how much you need to put in, and I think we might be approaching that point. Having said that, I've never failed with an Arduino auto tune, so those have always made it right. But for me, flying on this, for me, it has to be able to fly without having a tune first, and then it would be great if we could pull it in. I'm not explaining. See, that's why I'd be no good. I'm not explaining that very well, and you've not admitted your secret sauce in that you are actually an AI developer. That's your.
Not really a developer, but yeah, I do specialize in AI for certain elements of my work. Yeah, for sure. So a lot of that is private segregated LLM AIs. So a lot of open source stuff, a lot of segregated secret squirrel stuff. But then also, with the Azure Open AI platform as well, working with that for more corporate enterprise structures as well. I think it's important to point out, though, that the AI tune is not perfect. It's far from perfect. It can achieve in 20 minutes what would take me an hour or so. But if I was to spend 4 hours, and in fact, I spent 4 hours tuning that XI20 today, following Brian, PID Toolbox. If you know about PID Toolbox, it's incredible. Following his processes to actually tune that drone. And he got me close within about an hour towards where the AI was. And then I refined it. And it's that extra 7% that makes all the difference. And that's where the perfection comes from. It gets you close. It's not perfect. But it will equally get you a horrific tune if you're not careful. If you just okay everything and give it bad data and go, yes, well, my drone, I want it to fly, give me a tune, you're going to end up with something that's going to potentially take off, oscillate, and run through the ceiling. That's almost guaranteed.
I did notice it. I thought it's extremely brave of you to take off from that spot behind you before you went out the window and not fly straight through that big flat TV. I thought that's very, very, very brave. That very brave. And I've also got to ask, why have you got helmets with steering wheels behind you?
Oh, there's a sim racing rig over there. So I gave up motorsport a few years ago and I got heavily into sim racing. So yeah, it's a direct drive sim rig, bucket seat.
But what do you need the helmet for?
The helmets are for my motorcycles. Yeah, they're for something else.
Okay. Okay.
That's just where they live.
It's a bit intuitive, but I thought, no, I get the steering wheels, but I don't understand why it's got
that's
that.
when I take the bus. Yeah.
Oh, Cliff just stopped and take the bus. Do you get? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you've still got a bus service in the UK. Well, it's the video I saw, and our dear viewers, our dear specialist viewers, go off, have a look at his Willet Mod channel, and have a look and give him because I know we all like our handcrafted, bespoke, tunes, that we've carefully whittled away from wood and all that sort of thing. And I know everybody likes that sort of thing, but I think you're definitely onto something, and it's going to be interesting to see how it progresses. And I thought what was very interesting in that first tune that it picked up that you had a chip in one of the propellers.
That was cool. Yeah, that was not planned. I promise.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more on that about how it picked up the chip propeller? And that'd be curious to hear.
I don't have a prop here. I did actually keep that one, but yeah, effectively it saw a motor imbalance. So when it was looking at the graphs and the motor output and the current draw, it noticed that one of the motors was out of balance. In fact, it was about 30. There was a 36 point out of balance, and that is moderate. It's fairly sufficient. And I know from tuning myself, I've always used a fresh set of props because, of course, when you tune, you want everything to be correct. I've never picked up on a motor imbalance myself when doing manual tuning, but that's the only thing that could explain it. I didn't know it was there. Picked up the drone, had a look at a couple of the props, and on the end of one, there was a tiny 1 millimeter crook just in the end where it caught over, and that was it. I changed that out and reran that again afterwards, just as a matter of course, and sure enough, it was about a 4% deviation on motors in terms of imbalance. So, yeah, purely by luck, that one, but really cool.
I'm just emailing Bruce. He's probably got the time wrong. But I was just saying, I'm just worried he's all right because it's unusual for Bruce not to turn up without saying anything. No, that's extraordinary. So, can you see some sort of real-time fault detection system with that sort of thing as well? Have you put onboard processing and that sort of thing? Yeah,
for sure. One of my drones, I think it's it might be the little one actually, the Apex Mini. It's got Wi-Fi on board, so I can connect to Betaflight via Wi-Fi. Now I can't do live black box logging and reading because that is in a part of the ESC that is not read-writable whilst the aircraft is in motion or the craft's in motion. But there's not to say that we can't do that live logging potentially at some point moving forwards. And that will be able to monitor those PIDs and obviously take a lot of processing power and resources. I don't think it'll be able to be done locally on the drone, but certainly by some sort of two-way link, maybe another data link over ELRS or something similar, it would be entirely possible to tune in flight. I've read a lot about the potentials of tuning in flight on board. And again, I think just due to the nature of the scripts and the processing power that's required to work out the step correction would just not be possible on the craft itself. But it's not so you can't plug it in, press a button and have it tune itself. Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. Also, I think worth mentioning is if we look at AI generally, about November last year, AI is still not even warm yet. It's stone cold. We haven't even started to take off in terms of what it can do. So if you look at the programming side and only the programming side of LLMs, in November last year, there was about 10,000 people on the planet better than AI at coding. And we talk about vibe coding and all sorts, but just as a generalism, we'll just call it coding. As of December last year, it was about 10,000 people were better than it. And we say it, we just mean AI in general at coding. And by February this year, we're down to the hundreds. We're down to, there's only a few hundred people in the world who are better and more capable at programming than AI. And that's a statistic that's been pulled out the bag several times from lots of researchers. And
I would just add to that, though, they haven't seen my code. So it might be skewed.
But I think the coding, when we say it's probably, they probably rate it on something like, well, here's a bunch of code, run through that, see if you can find any mistakes. And of course it will do that. What it is unable to do is the human element, which is actually find a connection, find paths, find reasoning behind the purpose in the first place. I think that's the bit where AI is not particularly clever.
Well, there we are. John calls BS. But you must. I'm urging you, and all the regular viewers are going to tap me. Go and look at all RGPilot will do. Use a proper flight stack for your experiments, and you can have companion computers, and you'll see they already do real-time onboard tuning. But I'm sure you could bring a lot to the party with that, and the fault detection I know is beginning to evolve as well. But you are, they're probably F7 controllers in there, I should imagine. So it's pretty amazing stuff. It is amazing stuff. So dear viewers, have a look at Will at Mod channel, have a look at Johnny's work, and come back and tell us, and we'll invite him back on, that's for sure. And quiz him even harder about it all. He did tell me before we started that he's working with a Canadian company, so we have exceeded our Canadian quota tonight with Josh here as well. That does seem unfair, and I don't know where Bruce is. I hope he's all right. But Josh, shall we quickly jump to the regulations over there? Perhaps you'd just like to read them to us. I believe you have them on hand ready.
I don't think we want to be here all night. Maybe we do. Maybe we could see a die off on. But I can give you a summary. But basically, for those who aren't aware, Canada announced their BVLOS regs. Part of the rules are in effect today, but there's some gaps. So like, it's not really, you can't just go fly BVLOS. But you know, they've published the standards. I've already seen people online posting that they've now passed their level 1 complex examination, which if I remember correctly, it's 50 questions, 90 minutes, 80% requirement. And then you have to go do 20 hours of ground school. That's great. I think the ground schools actually don't have all the ground schools don't have all of the requirements yet, from my understanding. And then the other one is there's no drones that are approved yet. So pilots first and then drones. So this one is actually a subsection of the rules. So this I published today. So this is standard 922. This basically says, this is the technical requirements of how you build your drone for different types of missions. If you scroll down a little bit, this is the Alta X with our guided system. I thought that was a nice use case. And one thing to understand about our BVLOS rules is we're not really focused on backyard burger delivery. It's about BVLOS in sparsely populated area. So this is a lot of risk management. People are probably like, well, why do we have to go so rural? Like, there's not a big business argument there, but it's, you know, crawl, walk, run.
I actually wanted to stop you and ask you about that. What is in that container underneath that thing? You said guided something. Tell us about that before we go into that. More interesting probably than the BVLOS rules.
Yeah. So this is what we call it's technically a micro JPAD. If you were to look at like the terminology, JPADs come from the time in early 2000s, Afghanistan dropping things from C-130s. A lot of times they're dropping pallets, Humvees, large things. We basically created a micro JPAD, and then we built this technology ultimately to incorporate it into drone parachutes so that they didn't drift into trees. But we ended up building a product, and so you can fly this on an automated waypoint mission. It hits a geofence area, it drops, and it guides into approximately 10 to 16 meters of a GPS point. Inside there, if you look, if you scroll in a tiny bit, Gary, you can
scroll in and see if I can. Did it get big? It's got bigger? Yeah.
So if you look here, that top front where the black lid is, that's where the parachute is. Up until there's like this rim, those are LED lights. And then the bottom part is where you put all your goods. I think you can fit up to 8 kg of items that fit in this tube. So basically it's a meant for a case where you need to fly far, but you can't land, or you don't know what the landing environment's like. And so we've built a few iterations of this, different sizes. We've got one version that uses machine vision for navigation instead of using GPS. And then we have got a consumable version that I just got back from the mountains testing. Some different iterations. We're triggering avalanches ultimately with drones, dropping explosives, and trying to figure out different methods. The parachute for avalanche, there's some different nuances, and we've got some other products, which I'll be announcing later this year. But so this is
that's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool thing. So just quickly, the circle at the top is the black circle at the top. It's the parachute. Then down to the rim, that's the gubbins. And then below that is what you're carrying. So it falls off that, and then it's a guided rectangular parachute all the way.
So what I can do here, I'll drop you a YouTube link of a video we did of the testing and work. This product's been used by a foreign military, some remote communities, but I can drop you a link of a video we did 2 years ago. We were in Labrador, which in February, I think when they landed, it was -50. Obviously, the drone can't handle that, but we were flying in -20. So here, I just dropped it in, Gary, to you. If
Yeah, here
you
it
want
comes.
to take a look at that video, you can actually see how much space it can fit. You can see kind of some of the nuances there. If you jump to, let me tell you where to go. It's a little long of a video. You go to the, go to 2 minutes, and if you watch from there, you can kind of see
enough to get stuck far away from civilization. The AVSS guided parachute system is capable of precisely delivering payloads from a drone that can hold life-saving equipment to help in any situation. This fully autonomous system is able to react quickly and effortlessly, providing a stranded individual the supplies that they would need to stay safe until help arrives.
You've certainly got, it's a really good example of why I say to people when they send me PRs, put somebody in the picture, because you've got, is that bigger than that is the one you had in that original picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've got no idea how big of a thing it is when you just put it underneath the thing. Yeah. You've got to put people in. There's no point sending me pictures of things, because they're just things, unless you've got a person in with them. Anyway, ran over. Hello there, Bruce. You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine. I put my clock back by a year by mistake.
Well, it's 1974 in New Zealand now, isn't it?
75.
Oh, there you go.
Don't be silly, Gary.
Okay, I was moving on. Yeah,
I'm looking for my flared jeans. I can't find them anywhere.
Well, they've come back round into fashion twice, haven't they? But anyway, yeah, you see, you've no idea how big that thing is from that. And I've told you off now, Josh. Consider yourself told off. Please continue. Very interesting.
I typically see. All I remembered from a previous rant a couple years ago was send me a real photo. Don't send me a bullshit mock-up.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That was my first. So now I have to add people. Yeah. I will include people next time.
Good.
Just use real AI, not this fake stuff.
Wow, you've missed a great conversation about AI. We might have to go through that again with Johnny. It's very interesting. So what do these BVLOS rules mean for this platform in particular, let's say, Josh?
Well, like the way the BVLOS rules, I don't think quadcopters are really your choice. You want to go VTOLs or fixed wings. So like the way that our rules are working is sparsely populated. So here you've got technical assurance, and this one is more related to a manufacturer and like what they needed to declare. But if you scroll down a tiny bit more, the definition of sparsely populated kind of gives you an idea. Actually, this is kind of funny for those who aren't aware. In Canada, our normal rules, you can self-declare, and then they can audit you at any point. We've been audited. We weren't invalidated, but we've had several competitors invalidated where people woke up and their drones weren't compliant anymore. Because in Canada, we took the approach of be honest and say your drone's good, and maybe we'll check in a couple of years, which they did 5 years later. So it's an interesting one. But if you keep scrolling down, this new process is basically Transport Canada is going to look under the hood for certain types of missions. So if you look at these square boxes, these are where drone manufacturers are going to have to do the paperwork for drones up to 100, medium drone up to 150 kg, flying less than 500 feet and then less than 100 feet, and like what these little standard requirements. And what the big thing there is the yes. So that means for BVLOS, you need to not just declare. You need to basically, it's not type cert like the FAA, like, 4 years, but you got to build a plan. They look at the plan, they accept it. And then if you keep scrolling down from an end user's perspective in like operations, so right here, sparsely populated. So this is the small drone, so under 25 kg. You're going to be able to fly over sparsely populated area with more than 5, but not more than 25 people per kilometer. So it's going to be really rural. The thing is with this, and this is based off either kind of census data, site selection, there's some different information there. Basically, it's going to be in remote areas, rural locations, outside the city. So no really drone delivery backyard. So when we think of the market and where it's going for the short period of time, basically by allowing these rules, Transport Canada can focus on like giving approvals for more nuanced internal use cases in the cities. But basically, you're going to be able to fly BVLOS, and it's going to be probably it's going to be an interesting mix because like when you're outside the cities, you're usually going north, and that means cold. So that like most drone companies don't understand what -20 is, let alone -30. So there's going to be a lot of nuance there. And so basically with Canada, our regulators are ahead of the game. We have rules that basically give us the opportunity to expand. One thing with Canada is like, we're not going to be $1 billion market like the US maybe, but it gives you the opportunity to get your reps in, similar to zipline going to Africa 10 years ago. It's kind of like gives you the Western side of doing testing. And so, it's an exciting time, I think. And Transport Canada was supposed to have these fully implemented April 1st. It's now November 4th, which, whatever, like that's fine. One of the arguments was if they implemented April 1st, everyone would be like scurrying around because the summer season's up on us. Whereas by November 4th, it gives people time.
But I might have thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
But some of the new rule changes are a joke. What about the micro drone rule change where you need an SFOC to fly an advertised event? What's that all about?
So that's an interesting one. So the problem is, because I get these stupid messages from people, not stupid. I get messages from people when people are seeing drones. For some reason, if someone sees a drone at an event, I get a call, and I get text message photos. And the problem is you go have a concert in Canada, these micro drones would show up, and there's somebody maybe with an SFOC, maybe there's police officers, and there's a lack of communication. I think that was one of the concerns, is that like you've got a group of people that are using these drones. Now you're right on like the ground risk. A 250 gram drone or 249 isn't going to probably kill somebody, but I think there's the air risk of hitting like the Mavic or the M300 or the bigger aircraft. But ultimately, what it's going to do is it's $75 for the pilot if they want to apply for SFOC. One thing we have in Canada is we do have standing offers. So like I'm wondering if someone can get a national standing if you went and did the risk assessments. And basically, that one is the shock, I think, to all the micro pilot community, the micro drone community on like, oh, now I have to do paperwork. And
the way they've defined it is silly though. If your local school has a fair and it's advertised, you get an SFOC to fly at your local school where there's probably got to be a few hundred people at a sort of a fete or whatever. How does that work?
Yeah, let me pull that up. Let me give you I don't screw with the micro drone community. There's too many of you guys. You got to be word by word. So give me a second. I'll tell you the exact definition. So an advertised event means an outdoor event that is advertised to the general public, including concert, festival, market, or sporting event.
That makes no sense because it's not risk-based. I mean, I can understand perhaps a concert event where there might be many, many thousands of people. There may be other drones operating with authorization to get special shots. But the local, schoolyard, when there's perhaps an advertised football event or something, and it attracts a crowd of 20 or 30 people, what the hell? I mean, they need, and what's the problem they're trying to solve? How many people have been killed by micro drones again? Can someone remind me?
Yeah, I think the problem is we're getting to a point where you've got the micro drone pilots. So in Canada, the difference like versus the US is in the US, if you're making money, you got to have a Part 107. In Canada, ours is just weight based. So if you have a drone over 249 grams, you need to register. And then depending on airspace, basic or advanced, I have an assumption that like you go to look at concerts, you go look at protests, the police are there, news is there. They have all these proper approvals, and then you get a micro pilot or micro drone that's not. They don't have a license, like they don't even have basic. Like I think maybe a better approach is just mandating basic license for all pilots, but then you kill off a huge part of the community. So I think there's like you're screwed either way.
How about you just have it like large crowds as an issue? Say large crowds, you can't fly over or near large crowds. That would be a simpler way to do it, wouldn't it? And then it doesn't matter. It's risk based, not revenue based.
Yeah, well, and it's not revenue based now, but I think one thing is you're probably right. Like maybe like either a population density or like if there is more than 10 people at this event or 100 people, whatever the number it may be, maybe that could have been an improved way. But I think the issue is like the amount of people that you could go to Costco and throw up the drone and don't know what to like. There's a lot of It's not the hobbyists, it's the Costco buyers. I think is the real problem.
Yeah, they're only sub 250s, and who cares if there's a whole lot of sub 250s? The risk we've proven the risk is minimal. So does it really matter if a couple of sub 250 gram drones crash and fall to the ground and break and people stomp on them at a concert? I don't think it does.
But when there's risk is one thing. But what about nuisance, annoyance, and just bog off with that?
If you're at a heavy metal concert, you've got enough of that coming from the stage.
Yeah, I think the problem with the micro drones, from my perspective, is it's not them and the ground risk; it's the air risk of flying in and interrupting. Like our rules, like basically before was don't be an idiot. and clearly too
Yep.
many people were idiots. And I
What
think
was the
one
consequence? Yeah, but what were the consequences of that idiocy? Not as much as the idiocy of the RCMP, for example, and they're still allowed to fly.
and in our country, we don't have state aircraft rules, so they're falling under the same rules. And then I think the big thing is I'd be concerned. Like I've got a concert location near my place, and there's micro drones flying while there's other photography and police. I'd be worried about the micro drone hitting the M300. That'd be my concern.
Yeah, the thing then, what they should do is, instead of putting the burden on the micro drone flyer, why not say, if you're having an event where you want to have control over the airspace, you apply for a permit to have that, and then the micro drone flyers are excluded under the temporary flight restriction rules. That would be simpler. And then put the responsibility, the burden on those who are reaping the benefit.
Yeah, I guess the question is, do the micro drone pilots not reap a benefit of making those shots?
Not financially, not in the same way that the people flying the larger commercial drones.
No, people are using and from my experience, the amount of people that just throw their Mavic Mini up because it's just an easier pathway, especially in the cities. They just basically say, well, like we shoot with a guy, Billy Kyle, he's a YouTuber. He'll pull out his micro drone to do flights all the time because it's just an easier process. And the quality is good enough for what he's shooting for.
Yeah, so I still think that all regulation should be risk-based, not convenience, not annoyance, not anything else, because aviation regulations are about risk. They're not about, am I upsetting you, invading your privacy, or am I creating a noise you don't like? There's other regulations on the statutes to control noise problems, privacy issues. Aviation regulators should not be involved in those things.
Yeah, here, so this is what they said, actually. I'll give you the exact rationale. TC received approximately 19 comments addressing microdrones. Some stakeholders requested more rules for microdrones, especially around advertised events to increase knowledge about micropilots, as some stakeholders perceive microdrones as a safety risk, and some comments called to question the weight threshold for microdrones to be increased. So basically, they got comments from stakeholders.
19 people. 19 people. How many people in Canada? And you notice the word perceived, 20. Not actual or reality, but perceived. These are regulations brought out. There's not enough substantial evidence to support this change in regulation. 19 people who perceive there's a problem. That's no reason to change from fantastic non-prescriptive regulation to the thin end of a wedge where suddenly we've got prescriptive regulation creeping in to an area of the industry and the hobby where there's been no deaths at all. There's been no property damage. It is simply, I think it's probably more involved in protecting the access and rights of those who are flying larger drones commercially, like the M300s. They don't want these interlopers with their cheap little mini drones coming in and stealing their business. And that's not where the regulator should be looking. Regulators should be focused on the risk, not on any financial implications.
Just to clarify, this could be a stereotype, but wouldn't any drone falling down in Canada be landing on snow?
Depends where, climate change,
mooses.
Yeah,
but I think the thing with the microdrone piece, like they say it's going to cost a microdrone pilot $559 Canadian dollars, which is like 400 American.
And the thing is, what if you pay $75? Suddenly you're safe. How does that work?
No, you pay $75 so that others are aware that you're in the airspace when they're doing commercial ops or approved ops.
Then why not just provide a site where you can register for free? Just someone can set up a website, you register to let people know. Don't you have those things like
that's the more worrying. If that's the reason for the $75, that's more worrying than any of the rest of this conversation.
Here comes remote ID.
Yeah, we don't have. That's one thing is we don't have remote ID. We're doing all these BVLOS without remote ID.
UTM is in your future. I see that. This is the first part of the UTM.
Apparently that's impossible.
Yes.
We are talking about it, I think they're aiming for like 2030 to start doing like network-based for like commercial ops, they said. But there's basically right now we don't have it, and we do things that But I think ultimately, like again, the microdrone world is not my place where I participate regularly. It's outside my wheelhouse, and I know that the community is way too strong to comment anything.
Well, it's the Josh this here, and it's all Josh's fault. Grey arrows there in the comments. All of this is Josh's fault. We're talking to it because it is all Josh is Canada. It's all his fault. Let's blame Josh. I think it's easier that way, isn't it? We just do that. It is just
Well,
easier.
if you're Canadian and you come on the show, that's the problem you've got to face, eh? He's the only Canadian we could get to come, isn't he? Oh,
No,
Don
hang on. Johnny works for Canadian.
Where's Don? I
company.
haven't heard from Don. He should be commenting
Which
on
Canadian
this.
company do you work for, Johnny?
Sorry.
Which Canadian company do you work for?
Oh, so it was I2G and now Crucial Logics.
Never heard of it. Where are they based?
That's a
So
stiff
Crucial
Canadian
Logics-
accent.
Yeah, they've got an office over in Montreal.
Okay.
But I2G was Mississauga, Toronto, Montreal, and Quebec as well.
Okay. Cool. Very good.
And that's in the computery things. That's the bit that Bruce missed. The interesting bit about AI PID tuning, with no mention of blockchain or anything like that. But it's really worth looking at his video, and I definitely want to have you back to hear more about how that's done there. Now, Grey Arrows is here, so that means I can do the following. I can share that if you're in the UK, they extended their insurance cover to include commercial drone operations. Go to SES News and you will find that story there. So, Grey
And
Arrows
take
have
note of the drone pilot's legal handbook.
handbook on the right hand side. Oh yes, it's almost like I meant it to be, isn't it? But no, I'm glad Bruce has arrived because I did want to. We'll start off with this. Do you remember that TCAS spoofing that we thought that was happening? No, but wait, it wasn't TCAS spoofing. It was the Secret Service and US Navy experimenting with counter UAS stuff near a major international airport because it makes sense. So
Yes.
yeah,
Counter UAS measures will kill more people than drones. Well,
that's pretty serious, and I hope the guys who were fiddling around with, but you just know it would have been me. But I can imagine me doing it. Oh, I wonder what this does. And then meanwhile, a bit like, do you remember when they were fiddling about with that gun at the Formula One 2 years ago in Melbourne, and they shut down the pits? So yeah, it would have been me. It would have been me. But how do you think, Bruce? This is what I want to ask you. How do you think it spoofed the TCAS into having an alert from above?
I don't know. It was operating on TCAS frequencies. Maybe it was just some kind of noise, and the TCAS interpreted it as an unknown signal and decided that just, move. But they must have been doing something. And it's these are critical frequencies on. They shouldn't be played with, except if you've got a special permit. They should go to Canada and spend $75 getting SFOC for doing this sort of stuff.
Well, absolutely. So that's we know about the aircraft because they did all the avoiding action. But what about all the garage doors and pacemakers that went off downwind of wherever they were pointing these things? Because it's all ISM frequencies. So
do they have special exemptions to do this sort of testing? Because part of ISM says you must not deliberately interfere with other ISM signals.
No, they certainly don't.
Actually, it wasn't ISM though, because it was on the TCAS frequency, which is not an ISM.
Yeah, but there's no
Unless
need to
spoofing
spoof
GPS.
them. Yeah, there's no need to spoof ISM TCAS though, is there? Because
No.
TCAS by definition is a friend, not a foe. Or if it's a foe, then no, it harmonics or some spurious emissions somewhere from, as you say, the GPS. But it would infer to confuse TCAS that it's chucked another track into the air. That's what I don't quite get. They all got the same alerts, which was aircraft above them descending. So what were they testing? Sounds like they were injecting traffic into the airspace.
It does.
Far be it from me to suggest that. Or they're just in such a horrifically poorly built RF equipment that it was just chucking stuff everywhere.
Yeah, what I want to know, what would happen to all eVTOL air taxis when this happens?
Well, yes, quite. Well, they must land. But as I say,
Return
garage doors, all the things. We know, we know from Ian's machinations with Gatwick that the UK government did give permission for spoofing.
Well, for a jammer, yeah.
For the jamming spoofing on that first incident, but it was special permission given by the government. You can't just go out and do it. It's case by case basis. So that was very interesting. And then this one, which I used that old picture from ages ago. but 20 million for
Did you
future
see the
flight
picture they
in the
posted
UK.
on X this morning? The X
No.
tweet about this. Oh, it's brilliant. You should have a look at it. They've got a drone carrying a suitcase as an example of this. Like, and there's a guy standing there flying it. Seriously, you're going to use drones to carry luggage at airports? I thought drones weren't very good at airports. I thought also, I don't know.
Go on, mate.
I have to say, with it, I wasn't. I'm not. I had to be sarcastic a bit on this because it kind of puzzles me when we're making this announcement as 20 million, it's huge, and then we're literally a country that built a tunnel to stop stop bats getting hurt at 100 million, 5 times this, and the tunnel doesn't even do that. It's not fit for purpose. So if we could spend 100 million on a bat tunnel, I thought we could have, if you're going to make a big hoo-ha about it, you just thought a little bit more money.
Batman doesn't even use it.
More vision as well, because it's all again. It's like going back to 2019 or something back in time, because it's going the future. The future is UTM. The future is air taxis. Have you thought a taxi by air? Woo! And I'm like, you keep saying that. It's a cliche now. It's like, hasn't anyone got an idea other than drones are scary? We need to track them. Air taxi, come on. Someone's got to have. I mean, at least deliver people burgers. That's what they'd actually want.
I said to someone today, I'd rather they chuck £20 million at operators that are already flying, have got their small operations and they're making money, and give some metric to say what makes them successful. I don't think that metric is they're a member of that association in the UK, but find businesses that are doing well, chuck some money up that and grow that, because that's what's happening now. It's not in the future, it's happening now. People are making money now. And that's what needs to expand, not these flipping hairy-fairy ideas. But what I did want to mention, pie in the sky, there we go. I knew there's a reason I wanted you there. But this is going to be a flipping network remote ID. I put money on it.
I don't think that's enough as well. That's the funny thing.
No. But it's enough for biscuits.
How many Raspberry Pis can you buy for that?
Yeah, they think they can knock things together pretty cheap, but we know that will be astronomical. And it could be one of those things that ends
Get
up
your tender in now.
A huge embarrassment. And the thing that's frustrating with this well is, which is very weak, where if it wasn't having looked at Lakenheath, I would have looked more at EHang, because it would be good to just translate the documents that are there. Because there's a guy that's Chinese that does stuff out, and he says, because they're making a big hoo-ha, the future is now. Air taxis. It's being used for commercial use. And it's like, wait a minute. And he's saying it's being used as almost a fairground ride where the pilot's got to be in there and there's only one passenger. That's the use case.
And it can only take off and land in the same place. It can't go anywhere.
Exactly. So
it has to return to launch.
Yeah. So it's essentially it is a ride. And this is, but everyone that's on X there that's got the shares, because it's always, it's a EHang, woo, woo. China's ahead of everyone in the world, and they're going, has the world gone mad? Are people not read this? This is different to what. So I wanted to read it as well, because I don't think even EHang were communicating it as it was, and then that's obviously that concern me if the things don't tally up, because you should be telling your investors exactly what you have signed up for.
The certification that people are jumping up and down about, it's not an aircraft certification, it's an air operator certificate. Even I've held air operator certificates. Even a numpty like me can hold an air operator certificate. That is just your bit of paper that says you've got all your books and everything lined up so that if fare-paying passengers come along, you can fly. It's completely separate to the certification of the aircraft. It's nothing to do with the certification of the aircraft. It's, if you will, it's the certification of the office. That's all it is.
The Hyperloop will make these air taxis redundant anyway.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Who's that squeaking away? Is it me or what was? There's a squeaking going on. But I will.
It's my 3D printer.
It's your 3D printer. Goodness me. So we will
Prusa?
jump to.
Is
I
it a
don't know.
Prusa 3D printer?
He's not being drawn on that.
Right.
That was for you, Bruce. Is it a
I missed
Prusa?
it. I missed it because my printer's so loud.
Oh, I see. So, but it allows me to jump. This Lakenheath thing does, and I regret not posting it on the weekend when I realised what today would become, being April the 1st. It does look like an April Fool's thing, but it's not. Do you want to unpack this, Ian, or shall I? You unpack it, actually.
And you can jump in, can't you? So I'm trying to think. A lot's gone on with the Lakenheath thing in the last week or so. So obviously we've been covering this every week, and little bits keep coming out, and it's going. So like last week, we're looking at the fact that people hadn't really identified the fact. Authorities. There's been no mention of the fact that Newmarket has a problem with contraband coming in by drones, and obviously there's call logs in the exact same time frame, November 2024, with even a single incident having 8 drones apparently delivering tomato ketchup to people in the prison. So they're probably using one of Josh's things in by parachute and all that fancy stuff. Yeah, and but so there was question of, was it, could that be a factor? There's a concern still, what we go back all the way to was, could there be a misidentification? But there's something, as we are highlighting now, that's a bit more sinister. If there was something there, it sounds like a much more serious event than we've been led to believe. Now, this is interesting as well, because these are call logs that were found by a UAP sort of a guy that's actually done
UFO,
UAP,
the UFOs. Come on,
and you've thrown me off track now, man. So he'd done lots of queries around Gatwick around the time I was doing it, and I think just with the frustration of the way freedom of information works and what an uphill struggle it's made to be, especially around these drone subjects for some reason, he'd stopped doing them. So I was really pleased to see that he was back on What Do They Know, and I miss he's been doing stuff for a little while now, and he's got some really good stuff on Lakenheath. Now these, we shall go on in a minute. So he's got a couple of call logs here, and this is even quite funny as well. There's another UAP guy that's a former police officer. He's used to delving in and investigating stuff, and he hasn't got these call logs, and he's made a similar request. So it sounds like actually these are being stripped out of requests, and they were missed out of this one, or maybe it was too early, maybe it's an accident. But as we can see here, not only as it says that the National Police Air Service helicopter was withdrawing from the area due to a drone coming close to them, but it actually says forced to take emergency evasive action in relation to a drone which came within a dangerously, and that they've clearly redacted that off, and they haven't even marked the redaction, so we don't know how much they've taken off there. But that says that this wasn't a trivial event. Certainly in the eyes of the pilot, he felt that this was a dangerous situation. Now, having looked more at the ADS-B data, which it captures not only the location, but it captures the altitude, this is almost certainly 99.9% over, as we thought, Newmarket. So you've got a residential area. The helicopter climbs up to 5,000 foot, and it's actually quite a steep, rapid climb. This entire thing from Lakenheath down, certainly down from Lakenheath to Newmarket, is about 120 miles an hour. All the flights around and over Newmarket aren't slow either. It's, slowest speed was captured briefly, was about 60 miles an hour, but it's generally 90 to 130. So, this isn't, obviously doesn't fit now for talking about a contraband drone, because obviously that would be a heavy lift, 30 to 50 miles an hour. It raises lots of questions, doesn't it? Because it's not a typical speed. Certainly it's outside what we'd be doing for multi-rotor. The rumor is it was a fixed wing, so obviously that changes things a little bit. And obviously, again, that makes contraband off the list, if that is true, because obviously it's only a rumour. But yeah, it makes a question, who's building a fixed wing that can do up to 170 miles per hour, and you're able to take off and land it, presumably a eVTOL, because you've just got fields around there, because you're not going to have your own runway for this kind of mischief. So it raises lots of questions, but clearly,
no, UFO. It's a UFO.
Yes, UFO.
Because what you've admitted here in your freedom of comment, you've also omitted information. Is you kind of have caught hold from your foyers that they had video of the event, because you were going down the route of you asked for air proxies.
There's this. What I know from my own freedom of information, and this again shows that something has happened, because freedom of information from the National Police Air Service was acting as normal and it was flowing as normal. Somebody has leaned on the National Police Air Service. They will not talk. The likes of the BBC have gone to them and they will not say a thing. They will not release a thing. So someone's definitely lent on the National Police Air Service. But to that point, we do know that there was the air prox. We know that same incident is where the video is. So video was captured. We know that the operation was 18 minutes long. Now, looking at the ADSB, it just happens that from Lakenheath down to the mission round Newmarket, as it exits out, which we know now that it was exiting out to get away from this dangerous situation, that's 18 minutes. So that fits for that being the 18 minutes they're thinking about, because it was about an hour flight has gone up to Lakenheath originally. Because people will say, I've been saying all along, it looks like this has gone on over Newmarket, because you've got the whole, weaving, the helicopter turning around on itself and so on. And having seen the elevation changing then as well, it underlines it. But obviously the media was, of all elements of the media and social media, were trying to present this as going on over Lakenheath, and it isn't. And this was actually funny enough. I did a video on this freedom of information, and this has never happened before. I do a thing about freedom of information, it'll get a couple of hundred views. It's over 45,000 views, because it was picked up by the UFO community. Ross Coulthard, I think he's called, but he was trying to hijack it of, I think, proof that there is life.
Now we know how you can afford that new lens, eh?
So I jumped in straight away and said, whoa, hang on a minute. We don't know what's involved here. We can't say that that's Russians or anything else, because, we don't know if it's a misidentification. At that point, especially having not looked at the velocity, I wasn't sure that we could rule out the contraband drones, although that was up at the top before, and now that's kind of dropping down if you're talking about those speeds, especially
my big bet on this is it would have to be a pretty complex system if it was aware of the police helicopter and chasing it. I don't think.
Go
on. Well, I can't see it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say you make a very good point, because the point you made, and when as soon as you said it to me, I'm like, yes, was you don't, and as everyone knows, we fly drones, and this is the reason you're not allowed to fly BVLOS. You don't have awareness of what's going on around you. You're reliant on the camera you're looking at, and obviously, the more you try and zoom in on something, the less awareness you've got of your surroundings. So,
there's the ADSB alarm. Oh, anyway, sorry.
So you're quite right. If you were a drone trying to interact with a helicopter, you'd have no idea where it was in 3D space around you. So there wouldn't be this kind of dancing and to and froing and this kind of pursuit thing. Really, you more or less be going in your straight lines or doing what you're doing. Whereas this, it presents a picture that's different, doesn't it? So it does raise some questions.
But also, if you're being super nefarious and doing stuff, you're not going to go back and land at Newmarket. You're going to be from a field. I don't want to do here's a dummy's guide to how to do it. But there are platforms that go as fast as you think, and all day long, you'll be able to get yourself into bases and or overhead bases and sort it out if you're well funded enough and if you're trained. That's the bottom line. You'll be able to do it all day long. But a big platform capable of speed will show up on primary radar unless they've turned the move it target indicator down, which would then filter out slower stuff. If there's a highway or a railway or something nearby and there's continuous traffic, they don't want to be giving avoiding action on that. So I don't know. So I say it has to be a UFO, and it's not a UAP either because they don't exist. It's UFOs.
We have to point out as well that the fact that the National Police Air Service helicopter caught video proves that if the RAF AUKUS system for the period that was deployed, it would have also captured video if there was something there. And it looks like there wasn't for them, so which kind of tells you there wasn't anything thereafter. So it's a question of, is this drone anything even to do with that? Has there been mistakes? Or was there something there that because of what had gone on and the media attention, then they vanished?
That's the trouble, isn't it?
That's the trouble. If you take the scenario of Russian operatives, which is obviously one that's been put out there, and it's claimed that from looking at some public sources, they've been able to trace 4 potential Russian spies, one that went very close to the boundary of Lakenheath. That they departed the UK not long afterwards. So that would be, we haven't seen the video, we don't know. So we can always say at the moment, if you were speculating, you could say that's feasible.
And when we were talking about micro drones earlier, surely if you had, I don't know, some sort of receiver, or you just fly one onto a roof and leave it perched on something on the base watching. You'd fly from the fence to a roof and leave it there and just pull its video feed or something. It's just.
I mean, the suggestion that's being muted, but again, it's speculation. It could be complete nonsense, but the speculations there was, well, if Russia were doing it, sometimes what Russia has done is just troll. They do something to the staff to wind people up and see how they respond. In which case, you could say, well, yeah, maybe they put lights on it. But then again, like I say, if I was doing it anyway, I'd have gone full on lights, and it would have played the theme from Close Encounters. If you're going to troll, do it properly. Do it properly.
Yeah. But the ones that whistle up the road round the corner when he's on the road and they whistle past him, like that. That would be
good. And to be fair, if you were trolling, why wouldn't you not just keep flying between Lakenheath and Mildenhall and really wind them up? Why go down to Newmarket? So there are there's definitely more questions than answers here, but at least we're seeing a little bit more and thinking. And the good thing is here is at least unlike Gatwick, there's actually some video. And although we know there was some with Gatwick, it was very rubbish, and it was only seemingly produced because you had people at the Home Office literally calling up Gatwick Airport repeatedly and saying, what you're playing at, give us some video because we're looking very silly. And now onto this.
And this, as we're here, and then we'll silence him. Well, tell us about this, Ian.
Yeah, so this is of this week. This is the ICO ruling entirely 100% in my favour, which was nice. Although at this point, the CEA could, if they want to, appeal it, and they're welcome to, and I will embrace the challenge. But hopefully it won't come to that, because really it was silly that it's gone this far in the first place. So really, this stems to the fact that the CAA have been collecting from the NPCC and other sources regular feeds to multiple members of their staff. This isn't just like a few records. This is thousands of records that relate to drone infringements around airports in the UK. And they've also collected information of what I'd I'd consider false positives where airports have closed, and we've all been told it was because of a drone, and then afterwards they looked at it and either it wasn't a drone or actually it wasn't a drone acting illegally. It was like stuff, for example, East Midlands Airport happens to have a hotel within the footprint of where where they've marked on the counter drone system. This is where you've to cause an alert and close the airport down. So someone's turned on the drone inside to check the firmware, whatever. Now, as far as I'm concerned, and someone's welcome to correct me, there is no criminal offence and there's no threat to an airport by somebody turning on their drone inside their hotel room to check the firmware, to check the batteries charged fully. However, when that's happened, we've had closures, and I wanted to understand that as well, because we've seen with Gatwick, especially like for me, it frustrates me when we have Gatwick closed down, all the media goes out, and Gatwick Airport are responsible for this too, because they're communicating within this, saying there's a drone incursion that has closed the airport down, and it is party balloons. And even prior to the closure, there's people, the plane spotters there, and they're even doing a live feed saying it's balloons. So how come you've got amateurs effectively on the airfield that could tell for a fact it's balloons, and you've not got your own experienced staff seeing that? And why are you also ignoring your counter drone system that is remember, Gatwick Airport's got probably one of the best ones in the world, and you're being told no, there isn't a drone there, and you're going, sod it, we're closing down the airport. These kind of things, there should be transparency, because for me, if you're going on about just culture and you're on about transparency, it's always targeted at the drone community. You must be, where's the airport's responsibility? Where are we discussing where their procedures are flawed? If you've got a procedure that says a drone that isn't flying, that isn't moving, the counter drone tells you, you're using aeroscope, it will be telling you that's not moving, it isn't flying, and you're closing it down. It's like, why don't you have a tick list and go, oh yeah, there, where is it? Oh yeah, it's in the hotel that's there. These kind of things, those surely should be lessons learned, and there should be some transparency about that. But apparently there's only allowed to be transparency when the CAA wants it to be transparency. So the CAA is quite happy when it comes to December and it's a few days before the Gatwick anniversary to always say, let's get those dodgy looking stats and put them out in the media and say how bad the drone community is. And yet if I say, can I have the stats for East Midlands Airport when they closed down, when they shouldn't have done, they're going, no, we can't see that. This is all private. It can never, ever go out in the public eyes. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're being kind of two-faced. You're having there's an hypocrisy here where you're saying you can use the figures how you want negatively and weaponize it against the drone community. But if we want to have any open and honest discussions about what's going on and what the issues are, you're saying, no, you can't see it. And that was a problem. So what I was trying to do with Freedom of Information was say, come on, let's be straight. Let's see some of this data you collected. But the worst thing about this was the CAA said, we do not collect this data. We do not have any of this data. I said, let us see this report that I know exists. And they're going, no such report exists. So they're collecting the data, they're processing the data, they've got outputs, and they're telling me on Freedom of Information they don't even hold it. So it got all the way to the ICO. I spent months collecting proof that they had this data from multiple sources. I even know roughly how many staff received. I even know the names of some of the staff that have got the data. And I shouldn't have to do this. This isn't how Freedom of Information works. It's wrong. And I went in with the ICO and I gave them this. And there's a lot of evidence there, trust me. And I said, this must be bordering on a Section 77 offence.
There we are. That's what I wanted to hear,
which is concealing it. And the ICO did seriously consider that. It's very high bar to prove, because you've got to prove it's deliberate rather than incompetence. But the very fact that we had that discussion shows you how serious this was of data being, essentially I'm being told falsehoods. It's not the case. But what underlined this was, as soon as the CAA got wind of the fact the CAA were investigating, I've never ever seen this in 6 years of doing Freedom of Information, they went into the Freedom of Information and updated it and said, we want to change our stance. We do have the data. So they did a complete 180. But then they said, and part two of my question, which was asking about the airports, we're going to do neither confirm nor deny. So it was, I thought this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this at this point. And I tried to have some discussion, and we had like almost daily emails, and then someone at CAA, I think, had just knocked it on the head, and of saying, well, look, let's have a conversation about this. This is kind of what I'm after. You know, you can anonymize data, so on, and they weren't having any of it. So, but I personally think that would have played against the CAA, because I think you're better off having the corporation, the ICO seeing that, and we all agreed beforehand. But they were like, no, we're going to leave it to ICO now to decide. And thankfully, the ICO have found in my favour. Which, to be honest, if you'd seen the wealth of evidence I gave them, I'm genuinely not surprised. And I personally think the CAA have got away very lightly. I think if this was a private sector company, they would have been fined. They would have been made an example of, because I've never seen anything like this for actually data being held. And it's like, no. And it's like, the only way that can happen is you've got a broken freedom of information process where your own staff aren't telling you. And it's like, why are you even relying on people to tell you what they've got? Why haven't you got search tools that are checking everything?
Well, this is down to the SharePoint thing, isn't it? That's exactly the point of SharePoint, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like having...
It's so searchable.
Yes. So they won't be quite transparent enough about it, but they've always given the impression that this is kind of manual, that everyone's got stuff sat on their computers, and the CAA Freedom of Information team asks them. But if they ask their own staff, and their own staff have the stuff, and they say no, they haven't, that staff member's committing a criminal offence. And they say that the staff are aware of this and know this, and it wouldn't happen. But it's like, well, can you explain how you've been on this data and you've only admitted it right at the end? And the sad thing with this isn't the end of it either, because we can now see that Lakenheath we go back to. Now, at the start of Lakenheath, one of the first things I did was I asked the CAA, essentially the AirProx board, which comes under as being the CAA, I said, was there an AirProx filed? And they said no.
No,
and
exactly.
It had been filed. And I only found that out because I went to the National Police Air Service, that then were being allowed to speak. And they were quite honest and said, yes, they do. And they even told me the exact day that they logged it. And they said, yes, the CAA are aware. So I'm concerned again of how, if you've told me something that can be proven not to be factually correct. Now, it may be the case, and I say may, giving some benefit of the doubt. Now, the AirProx board is a shared function between the CAA and
what's AAIB? Yes, the AAIB.
Yeah, well, I think it's actually RAF. I've actually got emails back, and it's an RAF one. So I think
because that also came in, and they said, oh well, and they do, I know they don't. I know they report every 2 months or whatever it is. They basically said, oh, you're gonna have to wait for the 2 months for our findings.
That was further on. So the first one that I did was I said, was the one. And then when the Empire said, yeah, there was, I then did further questions. But I thought, wait a minute. Wait a minute. But I did wonder if the RAF had lied. So the CAA was saying what they thought was the case. And so they've been stitched up. I don't know if that is, but it might be that. But then again, if that was the case, you should have just said to me, this is what's happened, and it would have been matter dealt with. But the moment the CAA is willing to sort of cover for them, that you're essentially as guilty. So I really don't know what's going on there. But unfortunately,
UFO, mate, UFO. Yeah. They've got to hide it. They've got to hide it.
I've got a question for you. Have you ever FOIA'd? So, like, I've heard stories of different government departments doing weird things from people that's wives and husbands have the strategy. I got a guy at my office who used to actually work on the ATIP software in the government, which is kind of interesting. But question, have you just not submitted a FOIA for what is the compliance historical data for the CAA? Have you ever done, has the CAA ever punish an employee for not submitting? Like, have you ever so the RCMP in Canada got beat up a couple of years ago for non-compliance. Have you ever just flipped the script and say, on a FOIA, what your data is on how you actually respond to these? Like, what's your turnaround time? How many employees have ever been punished and all that to kind of support your argument?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think you'd probably avoid punishing your employees unless you found something where it was deliberate, which you'd hope would never be the case. I have to say, with the CAA up until this point, they've been pretty good in that they have been difficult on occasions, and you can tell when that's happening. But they are speedy, more than they have to be, because you can wait 20 days, and often they've replied to me next day or within a couple of days. So I've always considered them to be pretty sincere and pretty fair. But
generally on a Wednesday morning, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wednesday mornings are quite lively after we've had our chat tonight. Yeah.
But is it so? Your FOIA, who's not responding? Is it more related to the police departments then?
Yes. So the police have been really difficult, and whilst I say 20 days, I've got freedom of information that have gone on years. So they do get unnecessarily spun out, and I am being more. What's the word? I'm probably not being as soft with them. I would let things go on for months and that. I think I don't really care as long as I get the information in the end. But now I'm pushing a bit more, because as much as anything, it just makes it all a hassle that you're juggling so many at once. And I'd rather just go get that out of the way, on to the next one. And I think it's better for, if you're dealing with it sincerely, it's better for the organisations as well. So I have to say that I'm just really puzzled with what's gone on with the CAA, because you seem to have this degree of, it's almost exceptional performance with the speed that's coming through, but something is so very broken. But it seems to be when it comes to stuff that's contentious, which then suggests that somebody is looking at the subjects and making those more difficult, which shouldn't be the case, because it's supposed to be subject and applicant blind. So we'll have to see how things go in future. But that's been. I haven't
got a tin hat, but I've got a tin because I've got a sore throat. I've got tin on this, so I'll put that on. But the last 2 days, people have been jumping on comments with that you or I have made on social media things. People have been jumping on with fairly sensible questions, and one person even quoted the FOIA Act. Oh no, they won't get you under section whatever or whatever. It's like, who the heck are you? Just arriving at this social media place with intimate knowledge of these things of which we speak. So these things have been being watched, and I say often to Ian, if you're receiving a lot of flack, it must mean you're over the target, and I think we are. And what you haven't mentioned with the Gatwick thing is, and the 30-day is, if we're not careful, well, Gatwick especially is running out of time, isn't it? Was it 6 years for? I can't remember so if they keep peddling it, knocking stuff back, they'll be over the time. They won't have to answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of it may be arguable even after the time, but with anything, the longer it's left and the longer it's dragged out, the arguments can be made either way. I mean, there are benefits for me sometimes in things being drawn out, because even now with Lakenheath, for example, that happened in November, arguably into the first week of December, although really nothing might be.
Hang on, let me just stop you there, Ian. I'll say goodbye. Josh is going to drop off. He's grown up. He's got work to do. Thanks so much. We'll see you again. Elbows up, isn't it? Canada, elbows up.
Like that. And on a final note related to this FOIA topic, I did just receive the FOIA for the Canada soccer scandal. Kind of interesting. All the stuff that happened in France and the drones flying over and spying. I haven't actually. Yeah, I've got I think it's like 80, 90 pages. So if anyone wants a copy, or
I think you should go into that next week.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Next week's at a conference, but we can maybe the following. But let's follow up. And and I'll flip it over to you guys by email.
Perfect, mate. All right. Cheers. Take care. Look after yourself. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
I can nearly be rude. I can be rude about him now. He's gone. Good. Bloody Canadians. Eh?
I'm just trying to think when I was mid sentence, wasn't
You're
I?
mid flow. Well, look, we've gone well over the hour now, and poor Johnny here is just shocked. He's shocked at come and join us talk nonsense. Ian's been for years has been pushing the buttons on Gatwick, and yeah, it's.
I was going to say I remember where I was talking about the time. So that's even that now being back at the start of December. You know, if I was arguing it, and I will be with, you know, when you get to the ICO or tribunal, it's now more of a historic event, because we know that like the NPCC have left and so on, and likely the RAF left. It's now matter over. You know, you can say for as much as you want, just as been tried with Gatwick, we've got an active investigation, but it's like, have you? You know, who are you going after?
Yeah.
What evidence you got? You know, you can't just say national security, and you can't just say policing unless you can genuinely back that up. And what we generally find is you can't back it up. It's just a case of, we don't want you, the public, you mere plebs, knowing about what's going on around you. But with this one, I do think, given the situation, given what we see in the Freedom of Information today, with the wording that's saying an emergency, you know, maneuver away from a drone and all that, and it's over residential, that we can say there's a genuine public interest, that there could have been a collision over a residential area at 5,000 foot. You could have fatalities, you know, helicopter crashing down onto houses below, all that. That's, you know, what is the picture that's being presented there is of that scale. So it's like, if that's the case, this is civilian airspace. It's not over a military base. It isn't military people involved. It's civilians. There should be transparency about what's gone on. So hopefully, if the authorities do continue to be difficult, we'll be able to get that to tribunal, to a judge, to put those kind of arguments in front, and hopefully get a fair hearing and get to know what has actually gone on.
This one might go a bit bigger, because I don't know if they still are, but the BBC were due to run something tomorrow on this.
I know. See, this is the thing as well here this time. This might get a bit more difficult for the authorities, because the BBC, you know, given the context of what's gone on here, they want to know what's gone on as well. And they've gone to the National Police Air Service, and the National Police Air Service have definitely been let off, because they will not say anything now. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
They've refused the video. They even forced the BBC through Freedom of Information, and at the end of it have told them to sod off. And obviously I'm hoping, because the BBC's obviously got the money and the legal team as well, that maybe they'll do it, and then I don't have to worry about taking it. But whether they do or they don't, I'm quite prepared to run that one all the way as with the others. With Gatwick, it had to be the public interest that was argued. So it's something I'm familiar with doing. So I could do it again. So hopefully we'll get there in the end. But we do know, if that's to go to the ICO and then through to tribunal, it will likely be the end of this year or into the start of next before you'd actually get your answers at the end. But I have put questions to the MPAS team, that if they wanted to kind of avoid a lot of that, there are softer questions in there that could be answered. For example, so if you don't want to give the video, how about providing a description of the kind of drone, multi-rotor, fixed wing, that kind of thing, of actually, you know, giving some clarity around it, because that then supports the fact that they have actually seen the drone and there's not a mistake that's been buried here. And
I, you know, if I was prepared and clever and all that sort of thing, I would have that video. Was it from Cambridgeshire, where it was like a phantom or something, that the police helicopter chased it using their turret, and there it all was. It was all, and he had a really good video of the thing that they were after. So I'm sure they'll have exactly the same. So I suspect I want it to be UFO, but I suspect you might be bang on the money with it being a contraband delivery drone.
But it depends the context, doesn't it? Because if it is a fixed wing, it's not going to be contraband. So then we'll all be left like, what the hell?
Wow.
But to be fair,
we'll see.
It would be nice just for once to get someone saying a drone was involved and the actual video, and we can all go, oh yeah, it was a drone involved. We can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine, fair enough.
Yeah. And Cliff wants pizzas. Look, we've gone well over the hour. It's an extra special legal victory win. Bruce, have you got anything to say this evening other than show us now I want you to show us the ADSB device. It's obviously ready to go.
I have nothing to say.
You've nothing to say. Well, so you've got the that's some new
lens.
So how far away is the ADSB device then?
I'm just doing the final test now because the app has been a bit of a sticking point. But I used AI and it helped until it didn't, because I used a system called Cursor, which is great for writing Android apps, until they updated to the new version of the AI, and then it all fell apart and people are grizzling and bitching and wanting to cancel their subscriptions because now it just wrecks your software. So I had to go back to some backups and finish it off manually. But no, I'm chucking that up into the App Store, and now I'm making 4 of these things, and I'm going to throw them out. Have a lucky draw. You might win one, Gary. You never know.
Oh, no, hang on. I'm looking on my desk. I found the first part. Hang on. There's part number 8. Hang on. Let's have a look. It's not on my desk. It doesn't exist. And that's part number B, isn't it?
Yep, that'll do it. Yep. And the only other thing you need is a little buzzer that goes bzz, because it's no good if it's a silent alarm, is it? You're muted, Gary. What did you do? Shall I unmute you? There you go. No, hang on. You're still muted. Is your microphone falling out? You muted yourself, it says here, but I don't know. What have you done?
Does it work on that microphone?
There you go. Now you're working.
Yeah. When I pulled this out, I pulled out the USB cable for the microphone. You know, as you do. Is this some sort
as you do.
Yeah. Trust technology. Trust this one evil crowd. Look at them having to go at me already. No, it looks like I've got a couple of the bits and an antenna.
That's good.
So
no problems.
Yeah. Can make it go. But this is an awful Hong Kong RTL SDR. It is rubbish.
Is it a real one or a copy?
No, it's rubbish one. I bought it as a real one, but it's not. It's rubbish. So
they're making them in black now. They come in black, and it has to be the version 3. That's the version 4. I picked the wrong one up for that. But so I've got some links which I'll give people, because there's all sorts of shady providers selling the fake ones. So I spent some time trying to find providers who sold the real ones. Yeah.
No, grand. All right. Well,
and also you have to make yourself a little antenna. This is an antenna that's tuned to 1090.
1090.
Yeah, but it's pretty simple. Just some turns of wire.
What's the purpose of that?
Huh?
What's the purpose of that?
What?
That device you've got. I was too busy looking.
It's an ADSB receiver that picks up ADSB transmissions from about 10 kilometers away when it's in handheld form in most cases. And you can set thresholds, which will make it alarm if an aircraft comes within a certain distance below a certain height. And so basically, while you're flying, even if you've got goggles on, you'll know, there's an aircraft coming. And you can actually see on the screen where it's coming from, how high it is, the call sign, all that sort of stuff, which is more because they've got that thing in the DJI drones which just says, look out, there's an airplane, but you don't know where it is, if it's coming, going, whatever. It's just such a vague.
And I think it's too far as well, isn't it? I get the impression
it
warns you and people panicking over something that's never nowhere coming close to them.
Yeah. So if you're flying, say, up to 120 meters, and you can alarm it so that anything below, say, 1,000 feet will trigger the alarm. But if it's above 1,000 feet, you don't care because you're way below that. So.
And John says a spoofer. No, that's that other radio. And those.
So with that then, what's that cost then? So what have you invested in that?
I've invested a heap, but it's a Raspberry Pi and a software to find radio dongle and a little buzzer and some 3D printing. So it's not a lot of cost involved. People could put one together for under $100 US.
Oh, okay, that's all right, isn't it?
Yep. So I'm going to be publishing the software image, the source code, the 3D printing files, and also making some, because I've had a lot of people email me and say, look, it's great. I don't want to build one. I just want to buy one. So I'm going to do a signature series launch of just a small batch, which I'll sign them, which will devalue them enormously.
a signature, sir.
Sounds posh, eh? That sounds posh.
So, really cracking the merch thing now, aren't we?
And to make it even better, I'm going to print 0.1 millimeter layer thickness. How cool is that? Pristine. Yeah.
Pristine indeed. Well, you should have a word to Johnny. He knows how to do that whole AI programming stuff very, very well. And
that cursor thing, it's amazing how, because they're reliant on another product, they layer on top of an AI system. When the thing they're layering on is changed, their entire product gets thrown in a handbasket because it doesn't work anymore.
It's an issue, isn't it? It's definitely an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his PID tuning video? I think I sent it to
you. You probably sent it to me, but I've been really kind of busy with this ADSB alarm thing in the last week or so. So busy, I missed the starting point this morning. It's terrible.
Yes, witchcraft, I say. Witchcraft, that's what I say. I definitely prefer my handmade bespoke PID tunes, you know, artisan, made, mountain fresh and all that sort of thing.
I like this. If I can phase with the Parkinson's, it's smooth as.
That's right. Yeah, that's
anti-phase. We got problems.
We haven't had a red card. You're right, Cliff. We haven't had a red card for a while. And Johnny doesn't know. If we have anything sensible, we red card. We don't allow anything sensible on here. You have to have a red card for sensible conversations. So unfortunately, there tends to be few. But now I'm ranting, so it's the time to go. Dear viewer, look out for the Willet Mod channel. Have a look at Johnny's stuff. Watch him fly out the window. Be amazed. Be amazed at his tuning. It's very, very cool. And hopefully he'll come back again and tell us something exciting in the future. But watch and subscribe to his channel, and we'll see you again next week at 2100 Gin and Tonic, when no doubt something else will have happened in the great foyer scandals. Look after yourselves, everybody. Be careful out there. Cheers for now. Bye bye.